Hi, my name is Kayla Tamberg, and I have conducted research on the Academic Intervention Pivotal Response Training, or PRT. Looking at some background information, there is a growing body of research which examines targeted interventions that are being developed with the intent of utilizing and evaluating environmental modification in hopes to increase student behavior in a more naturalistic way. So the idea is that incidental teaching opportunities will in turn provide students with these increased opportunities to improve their academic skills, sustain longer durations of attention, as well as maintain meaningful interactions. The PRT strategy is an academic intervention in which existing literature has indicated supports individuals with educational needs pertaining specifically to social, emotional, cognitive, and communication development. As the research and literature continues to establish, there is not yet a specific study that identifies the effectiveness of the pivotal response training intervention as it relates to improving peer engagement for individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder within a school setting. So the focus of my study is to investigate the effectiveness of the pivotal response training intervention in an early childhood special education classroom setting. Looking at the participants and settings, the participants of this study include 3 male students with an average age of 3.5 years old. All participants have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and currently have an active IEP that includes goals and objectives to increase independence in responding to adult and peer questions, initiating conversations, and engaging in peer play interactions. The students are of varying ethnicities and attend the same suburban early childhood special education school and classroom, which is located in the Midwest. Looking over here at the method, a multiple baseline across participants design was utilized to evaluate the effects of pivotal response training on peer-to-peer interactions or engagements within the classroom. The study included one dependent variable, which was peer engagement, as well as one independent variable, which of course was the pivotal response training intervention adopted from the STAR curriculum, which is what our school follows. The materials needed to complete this study included the following: a lead investigator, which was myself, to collect data on each participant using a paper, pencil, and observational tally system. There were preferred student-selected toys and items and activities that were available and used as stimulus items. For example, cars, animals, blocks, puzzles, playhouses, etc. The researcher utilized the clock on the wall to time the 10-minute pivotal response training sessions as well as the 15-minute free play sessions. During the baseline phase, all participants were observed for 15 minutes during a free play / free choice session. Students were not yet at this time exposed to the pivotal response training strategies. The number of peer interactions were then recorded by the lead investigator using that tally mark system. For this study, peer interactions were defined as sharing or relinquishing a toy / item to a peer, turn taking with a peer, or imitating a play action with a peer. So for example, if a peer bounces a ball, then the participant of the study would imitate that peer by bouncing the ball. The students were not aware of the data being collected on them at this time. During baseline, instruction resumed as normal. Typical instruction included staff present in the play area, staff encouraging conversations with students, staff assessing students during play and engaging in play with students to elicit functional play opportunities and interactions. In order to move a participant to the intervention phase, the student required 3 or more data points and a predictable trend in the baseline data. The intervention phase included a 10-minute one-on-one pivotal response training session where preferred toy items were available and in sight for the participant in the PRT session. I, the interventionist, then provided specific opportunities to encourage and elicit motivation, increase response to cues, attention, and engagement throughout the session. So, for example, there may have been a very highly motivating car that was on the table, and I may have pushed that car around, making some intriguing car sounds in hopes that the student would be motivated enough to then request the car or identify that it's their turn to push the car. I would then tally mark whether or not the student requested the item or imitated me pushing the car, or identified that it was their turn. Just like in the baseline, an observational tally system was used during the intervention phase of the investigation. Immediately after the PRT session and during free play, if the student demonstrated one of the following peer engagement interactions, then a tally mark was used during the 15-minute free play session. These included relinquishing a toy item, sharing a toy item, or again, imitating a toy action. Moving to the results section. Results of this particular study distinguished the effectiveness of the pivotal response training intervention related to increasing student engagement at the early childhood special education level. Looking here at participant 1, on the graph we can see that there is a high level of variability across the intervention phase. The trend observed continues to ascend in an upward direction, indicating that the PRT intervention did have a strong effect on participant 1. While participant 2 took a little bit longer to show an intervention effect, we can see that after session 13 here, there is somewhat of an ascending trend upward, which then kind of levels out across multiple sessions. There is high levels of variability here with this student, so it's difficult to explicitly say that this intervention had a strong effect for participant 2. And then looking down here at participant 3, we see that there was not as steady of a trend in the beginning during baseline phase, so it took a little bit longer for the student to start the intervention. However, once we did start the intervention, we can see that there is quite the jump here, which would indicate a high level of behavior change, and then there's a more consistent trend across the intervention phase. This intervention would indicate that there was a strong effect on participant 3. And then going to the discussion portion here, the primary purpose of this investigation was to again examine and assess the effectiveness of the evidence-based intervention PRT as it relates to increasing peer engagement with students receiving those intensive services for autism spectrum disorder in a preschool setting. The results of the present study do indicate the efficacy of providing PRT as a peer engagement intervention in an early childhood special education setting. Participants showed increased overall gains in peer engagement when provided with the opportunity to practice those skills in a one-on-one setting with an instructor. The results of this study do replicate previous findings and furthers the effectiveness of this intervention in a preschool setting with students with autism. Previous research was conducted in homes, outside therapy facilities, and communities with really limited research in a preschool setting. Past research also looked at communication instead of specifically peer engagement, peer-to-peer engagement, that is. One limitation of this study is that all 3 participants were male participants. A second limitation of the study is that data was collected with 1 student during a morning session, and then data was also collected with 2 students in an afternoon session. The time of day may have impacted student and peer play interactions and engagement. Another limitation is based on the toys that were available within the classroom to the students during that free choice time. Some toys may have been motivating to some participants and maybe not as motivating to other participants. And then suggestions for further studies in this field. Further studies should consider a variety of ages, grade levels, populations, and abilities. Additionally, future research may want to investigate the validity of the implementation of the intervention to hopefully increase fidelity and generalization of these skills.